Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome back to SprangClass. This is class number 3 already. Wow. Good to see you again this evening. We have a number of topics that we're going to cover. Start off with a new finishing technique, and then we're going to talk about adding color, putting extra colored threads into your warp. But first of all, before we jump into that, I do want to know how you're doing, where you're at. This is your moment to brag about your successes, but also to ask about questions or to share snags, because it's very rare that somebody is the only one that's ever had that problem. Mostly other people have. So we start with what I call this status report. And who wants to go first? Or else Claire's going to call on people. If you don't want to be called on, that's fine. Let Claire know, or you can say, no, nothing to report.
Well, Prabha's on screen right now, so I'm going
Okay.
to invite her to.
Prabha.
Okay. Good evening. I found that I was working on these pieces and then I put it away, and maybe about later in the day I'd come in, and all of a sudden I found myself getting confused about the two different rows, and my beads would be in the wrong place. So there's a lot of taking out and putting back. But I realized then, which is okay, But here is my.
Very nice. Okay. Very nice.
And then here's the second one. I did do the chain stitch.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent.
The thing with this one was, in both of these, I did the, replacing the top row.
Okay.
And this one came out well. And that's because I did it like on the 5th, 6th, and 7th row.
Okay.
This one, I did it much sooner, and you can tell that it's. And I also think it's part of the other reason it doesn't look so good is this is an acrylic that I thought was okay. It said worsted, but then after starting, I looked at it and it was not as tight as it should have been, the twist. So I learned that it doesn't really do very well.
Okay. Okay.
But, other than that, it's going well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Well done. You get an A+ on your homework.
Oh.
Hooray. Well done. Okay. And she's already gone into the material from this class doing that chain across. Well done. Okay. Anyone else care to share? So Kevy, we've got you on the screen.
I had a really busy week, so I'm right back where we started at the end of last class.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm feeling okay about it.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. That's important. Good health is very important. Whew. And there's plenty of time. The videos will stay posted for a while, so you definitely have more than the 6 weeks to.
I'm trying to find a crochet hook.
Okay. All right. Who's up next?
Up next, I've got Deanna.
Hello.
Hello.
So I made a couple little things.
Excellent.
And also tried out the chain stitching on the bottom of these guys.
Oh, okay.
At least, yeah, both of them. And then on this one, I started chain stitching the top as well to kind of capture the loops.
Yes, yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, yeah.
You don't need class today.
Well, I'm having trouble with like the center sections, like I'm not a knitter or crocheter, so like trying to do that on the needles is difficult. So I'm practicing that on what I got on here now.
Okay. So Claire, if we have time, maybe we can find that diagonal finish at the middle, which I think is,
I'll cue that up.
Yeah, if we have time. There are a couple other approaches to working those last few rows. I can't show everything the first week, but as we work through.
Sure.
Okay, well done. Well done trying something wider.
Yeah.
Wow. And actually getting to the middle. Yay. Good job.
Thanks.
Good job.
So that's all the live audience we have tonight.
Okay. All righty. Yes. Yes. I understand there's a couple people who need to be watching the video, have other things this week, and that's
So for those who aren't, for those students watching this recording in the future, please send us an email with a picture of what you've accomplished this week.
yes, we want to know. We're, inquisitive minds here. All righty. Well, it sounds like people are doing well enough that we can proceed on to the instructions for the chain across. And the chain across, let's see, if we look at my iPhone here, there's a chain down the middle of this hat here. My head here, this kind of a hat. Whoops. I just now, if you can see my face, Claire, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Both of them.
Wonderful.
So we have this kind of a hat, kind of a slouch hat. You see how that's made? There's one set of loops going around my face. There's other set of loops that are all brought together here. And between those two sets of loops, we have, so the cloth worked from the outside edges towards the middle. And at the middle, we have this chain line finish. Looks like, crochet chain line is what that is.
Would you mind showing the edge where the first beginning or end, whatever? I want to see how those loops look. So how do you get them so neatly? Or you put a loop, you put another thread through it?
Yeah, there's a
I'll thread
thread, there's a
drawstring.
drawstring through there.
Okay.
There's a thread that goes through, and then you can tighten or loosen it around your head.
Okay. Otherwise, that edge would be floppy, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, I put a string through those first loops.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, and then the loops on the
Like
other
one
side also have a string through that's pulled tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what is bothering me, and I need to get over it, is that I'm consider myself very proficient knitter, and the finishing is techniques I've learned through the years, many years of knitting, has made me very sort of finicky about how the finishings are.
Yes.
And I think-
We are gonna talk about another thing that you can do so these loops here are not so long.
But I
Yes.
also understand that we are just beginning to learn, so that's part of the reason my beginning loops look rather sad.
Yeah. One thing at a time. There are a whole bunch of Sprang is as varied. There's as much you can do with Sprang as you can with knitting. But I can't tell you everything in the first class.
No, I understand.
This is another piece that finished with this chain line here in the middle. Maybe you can see this chain more easily. So this was a long piece folded in half, and we stitched the chain line down the middle. So that's what the chain line in the middle seals off the work. So we have a little video how to do that. And then there are a number of different ways to do this chain, and we'll talk about that. Okay, yes, roll the video. The chain across is an option for finishing many Sprang pieces, and there's a wide variety of ways to work the chain across. Sometimes you want your piece to stretch along the chain line. Sometimes you want the chain line to be firm. Here are some of the many options. We begin at the middle of a sample piece. I've worked as many rows as seems possible, and I've got a safety line across the last row. I also have a double-pointed knitting needle in the space of the last row. I'm going to use a crochet hook, and I will seal off the work to stabilize it, creating a chain line. Before you try working the chain, you might want to bring the ends of your frame together a little bit, loosen it up. You want to make sure that you've got a certain looseness of the cloth allowing you to do this. Let's start with chaining threads one at a time. I'm going to work across using the front threads only and taking them one at a time. I put my hook in this way and I turn it around. I take the next front thread onto the hook. My knitting needle reaches to take the loop at the back of the hook, and I take it over and off. I take the next front thread onto the hook. The loop at the back goes over and off. I take the next thread and the loop goes over and off. Take the next thread and the loop goes over and off. That's taking the threads one at a time. Another option is to work across the front only, but taking threads two at a time. So I take the two next front threads, I slide my knitting needle into the back loop, I take it over and off. I take two more front threads onto my hook, I slide the knitting needle into the 2 back loops and take them over and off. 2 loops from the knitting needle and over and off. So what happens at the end of this kind of a thing? What happens with the last loop of the chain? The last thread will be that thread with the bead. And here we are back to taking threads one at a time. And once again, the last thread will be the thread with the bead. And I pull it through the loop. So let's have a look and see. Here is the chain across the middle. The chain links are kind of spread apart. If you manipulate the cloth a bit, those loops do pull together. The question remains, what happens to the last loop? I untie the knot down here at the bottom of the frame, untie the end of the warp, and I pull that bead thread out. I pull on the thread with the bead, pull, 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 and you see that end comes through the loop, and the bead is now free. I can use that bead thread to complete the finishing of my piece. That leaves a chain across only one side of the cloth.
Now,
Can we make the chain go?
so this video goes on and on. You can go around, you take threads one at a time. And here I took a front thread, then a back thread, then a front thread, and a back thread. And what that does is it gives you maximum stretch. This one here had only, I took only front threads. And you notice there's a little bit of, there's a funny line above and below. The loops at the back are not as, they aren't pulled as tight. So there's a little bit of looseness in a previous row, but this is taking threads one at a time, just the front threads. This is taking them one at a front thread, then a back thread. And you see the difference there. How this one has got, it wants to sit a whole lot wider. It just depends on what it wants to be when it's finished. If now we take threads 2 at a time, then that, you know, pulls it in a little bit more firm. And here I took the threads 4 at a time, and that's a really firm finish at the middle. So it kind of depends on what you want. There's no fixed rules, but we're going to practice just, you know, for instance, questions about this?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you always do this finishing technique, this particular finishing technique, while the work is on the frame?
Don't have to, but the frame does kind of hold it in place.
Okay.
Makes it easier to work, I think. But that does depend, kind of depends on what's going on. Mostly I would say yes. Okay, so here, turn it this way. This is a safety string from previous, we don't need. This is the current safety string, and you do need a little bit of space for working with this. We watched the right-handed way of doing it, but maybe we want to see the left-handed way. I said we start by putting the hook in and turn it around. And the reason I do that is because it closes off the chain. If we don't do that, I take the first, if you take the first one, then the second one, pull the second one through, take the next one, pull through, take the next one, pull through. I want you to see how the chain is a little bit different. Oops. Okay, now see how the chain starts really wide and it gets narrow? Can we see? The chain is really spread apart and then it comes closer. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And if we start off by twisting that very first thread, I start off by putting the crochet hook in this direction, and then I come around. That gives it a twist. And then that very first start of the chain will be, it'll be a lot snugger. And you know what? I think I need to shorten my frame here because I'm having troubles grabbing. Okay. All right. Now it'll be easier. Okay. So now I can grab from the back and pull over and off. And then I'll take the next loop and I pull over and off. And the next loop. And I pull over and off. And then I want to show you the difference. Okay, so now you see how the chain starts.
Yep. Mhm.
It's closed. It doesn't spread apart there at the start. Do you see the difference? Okay, maybe I should do this left-handed now too. Boo, 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 boo. Left-handed. For left-handed people, I put the hook in. You want to make sure the bead is on the exit side, which is the towards the knots there, right? Put it like this, and then we take the next loop, and we take the back loop over and off. Boop. Come on. The back one goes over and off. Then I take the next loop, and the back one goes over and off. Then I take the next loop, and the back one goes over and off. And you just work your way all the way across. We get this chain that seals off the work. Yes? Okay. I'm going to do it right-handed again. And then we're going to talk about this bead thread, finishing off that bead thread. I'm taking the threads one at a time, and I'm taking only the front threads. But depending on what this is going to be when it grows up, how you want this center to behave, whether or not we take threads one at a time, two at a time, whether or not we go across just the front, or the video, if you watch it, is on the website. Go all the way around the corner and go around the front, and then also chain around the back side. Then the piece looks the same in front and back. It just depends on what the cloth is supposed to do once it gets finished. And how close you get to the middle, how tightly this chain, how much thread you leave for the chain also. That's a matter of taste, or depends on what it wants to be. Okay, so I made it all the way to the other side. I'm going to untie here at the bottom, untie this thread. And then we remove this thread at the edge. This last loop is made up of the thread that had the bead in it. So I can just pull that loop out, and it'll let the bead go free. Pull that thread out. Pull, pull, pull. And the bead goes free. Where'd the bead go to? There it is. Okay. So now I have this string hanging out the side of my cloth. And what happens there? Well, depends on what this wants to be. What you might do, if you're going to sew it up into a bag, then this is your sewing thread. And this thread with the bead is a sewing thread on the other side. But maybe not. Maybe you want this to be a rectangle. And we need to put that thread back where he came from. In which case, what you're going to do is you're just going to retrace your steps, and you're just going to put it back in where it came. Now you need to make sure that you're working the same, the stitch in the same lean as, so it respects this S lean here at the bottom. But let's see, the thread will tell you if it's wrong. See, that looks like it just melts right in. You can't really tell any difference. But if I did it the other way, if I'm sewing it in, I was poking down, but if I come up and I come up, wherever we have these two threads, there's two threads going around the one, that's that edge stitch. If I sew it the other way, then it doesn't quite melt in. Do you see how the edge there doesn't quite look the same? And what that is I'm doing a Z leaning stitch on the edge. Not the end of the world, but it doesn't quite look the same. Can you tell?
Yes.
How it doesn't quite look the same at the edge there. Maybe I shouldn't have used white thread. You can't quite tell.
I can see it.
Does it look okay to you?
Well, I can see there is a Z compared to the S.
Yeah, yeah, and it would look better if I were doing an S at the bottom here. So let me take it out and we'll put it in the other way. You just need to notice what you're doing and look and see if it blends in nicely or not. If it doesn't blend in nicely, then you need to do it the other way. See here, you can't tell where that edge one is. Do you see how that looks much neater? Picky little detail. And you know what, if you can't tell the difference, then don't worry about it. And it's not a
We will
problem.
someday.
Hey,
We'll be able to see it someday.
someday. Yes, yes, yes.
Maybe not today.
Okay, that's totally all right. Any questions with this?
Nope.
And as some of you have already found out, yes, you can work a chain on these loops here. If you want to shrink them up, that same idea. Take 2 loops on your hook, pull the second one through, take 1 more loop, which working a chain at the loops at the end is a way of snugging them up, giving yourself a tighter edge to things. Okay. How are we doing? Does anyone want some time to be playing with that yet? The next thing is, yes?
I think we can move on.
We can move on? Okay. Because then what we do is we take this off the frame and then we can put on a new warp, right? And this week we were going to put on 2 colors. We're going to use 2 colors and we're going to set up a piece so that we can play with these colors. We're going to set on a warp that has 5 loops, 2, 4, 2, and 5. And that way we can follow the instructions to do these kind of things. There is a video, I think, about setting up the warp. Yes?
Yes.
We if we're ready to move on, does anybody need a little bit more time with the chain? No?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Well, then we will proceed to the setting up. Set up a new one. Let's watch the video. Yes. I'm going to show you how to set up a warp that has 2 colors of yarn. Mostly we're going to use this color and we'll put in a few strands of this color. So this is the top of the frame and this is the bottom of the frame. I like to turn the frame sideways. I find it's easier to reach if I turn it this way. Right-handed people turn the frame so the top is at the right. Left-handed people put the top of the frame at the left. So this frame also uses 2 rods. I slide the rod into these eyelets, these 2 here, and I secure them with a rubber band. And the other rod goes in here and here. And I secure it with a rubber band. Now I take color number 1, and you want to make sure you have a bead. I'm rather insistent about the bead because it helps you keep the edge thread at the edge of your cloth. We're going to tie this yarn on to the rod at the bottom of the frame. I slide the yarn behind the rod and I make a simple knot here. Bring the thread over and around up through the circle. That's the first part of the knot. I like a releasable knot. For the second part of the knot, I take the cut end and I make a loop. The loop crosses over the other end to make a circle. Then the loop comes up through the center of the circle. Here's that loop. It goes over, around, up through the center of the circle. There we are. Releasable knot. Now I take the yarn over towards the top of the frame. At the top of the frame, I take the yarn behind the rod. And then it folds around to the front of the rod. I go to the bottom of the frame. I take the yarn behind the rod, then around to the front. You know how to do this. What I want is 5 loops counted along this rod. I pull from the ball. I place the yarn around the frame gently. And I pull from the ball. That's 3. And then 4. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5 loops. And I might want to check the cross. I slide my finger in here and I check to see that we've got that up, down arrangement. Yep, that looks good. Okay, I'm wanting to introduce 2 loops of this color of yarn. What do? Let's see. We always go behind and in front, behind and in front. I take this ball of yarn behind the rod at the bottom. It will sit here at the bottom of the frame for a minute while I take this color of yarn, and I want 2 loops of this color. So what I might do is to cut this yarn, allowing a length for the knot. I cut the yarn from ball number 1 because I want to tie a knot, attach it to the second color of yarn. I want the knot to sit right here at the bottom of the frame. I tie a shoelace sort of knot, so I might be able to undo and adjust the placement of the knot as necessary. And then I put on my 2 loops, behind and in front over here, and then at the bottom of the frame, behind and to the front. Just that. Behind and in front. And there's my 2 loops. So I started over here, I went back and forth, and I end over here. I take the yarn behind, and then I can cut, leaving sufficient length again for a knot. And I tie this to the other color of yarn. Once again, I'm going to use a shoelace sort of knot. I may need to adjust the tension, or more likely adjust the placement of the knot, and a shoelace knot allows that kind of undoing and fixing. Now let's see, I have 5 loops of this color and 2 of the contrasting color, and I'm wanting 4 more of this color. So I place behind and in front. That's 1, 2, 3, 3, and 4. Okay, that's 4. And now, and the thread has to go behind the rod. Now, we're getting a lot of knots here, and there is a way to minimize the number of knots. I'm going to leave the ball of yarn here at the bottom of the frame, and I need to add 2 more loops of this color of yarn. The yarn went behind, and this contrasting color needs to go in front. I'm going to place this lavender colored yarn across the rod at the bottom of the frame, and then I'll make 2 loops, behind and in front, and behind and in front, and behind and in front, and behind. Okay, so my 2 loops are there now. I started with the yarn in front of the rod, and I ended up behind the rod. I will now cut here, leaving length for a knot, and then I can tie this behind thread to this in front thread. It works out very nicely. I tie a shoelace type of knot that can be easily adjusted. But now that knot's not in the right place. To move it, I come up here to the top of the frame where I can grab the loops, and if I tug on them, I'll quickly figure out which way to pull to relocate the knot, relocate it in a position at the bottom of the frame, right there where I want it. So now I have 5, 2, 4, 2, and I'm wanting another 5 loops of this color. If I carry on with this color, you can see how it jumps over the contrasting colored loops. And maybe I want this color of yarn to be concealed inside those loops. To do that, I slide my finger along the rod to find this place right here. Some people erroneously come over to this end and they take this space, and that's going to give you problems. No, 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 no. Slide your finger along the rod at the bottom of the frame, and then you take the ball of yarn. Let's see, it passes behind the rod into the front. I take the ball through the space, and you can see how the yarn goes behind and in front while it passes inside the contrasting colored loops. So it'll be concealed there. That's how you do it. And I carry on. I put on 5 more loops here. That's 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Okay, the yarn ends up here at the rod at the bottom of the frame. I want to check the cross before I do anything else, so I slide my finger in along the rod at the bottom of the frame, and I include the thread with the bead. I slide my hand up towards the top of the frame and I check to see the cross is correct. I make sure I have this nice up, down. 5 gray, 2 purple, 4 gray, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that's good. Both cross and number of threads check out. That's really good. So now
Okay.
the yarn ends at the bottom of the frame. I'm going to cut here.
Okay, are we clear about how that works? How we're going to put 2 colors of yarn in there? And this is, if we have 2 colors.
Kevy's shaking her head.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're just tying them into a continuous string.
Yes.
Is that what I
Yes.
got?
2 ways of doing it. One is that you can cut this one and then tie it to this one. And then the other one is you can have this color sneak in behind.
Mm.
This one is continuous and this color is going to, you make 2 knots at the bottom with each, is what, let's have a different color. Is everybody clear on how that works? And to follow the pattern, we have 2 colors, A and B. We're going to say this color is color A. I need loops, 5 loops of A, 2 loops of B, 4 of A, 2 of B, 5. Does that make sense? I'm going to leave that set there while I set on, and I'm going to do it at the same time as you are so that, make sure it happens. I give the right amount of time. I put a bead on there. Now, right-handed people will have the top of the frame over here. Left-handed people, if you're setting up left-handed, then what we do is we move it around like this. And if you're left-handed, you're going to tie on over here because this is the bottom of the frame. For left-handed people, there's my little sign. Left-handed people. Left-handed, this is the bottom of the frame, and you're going to tie on here. But right-handed people at the bottom of the frame here, top of the frame here. Okay. And the rest of the rules are the same. Tie the knot. Okay. I like to have the ball of yarn over there. I pull from the ball and I loosely lay my warp around. Behind it in front, behind it in front. So here, if I'm going to do the thing where I avoid as many knots as possible, I'm going to just leave this color A. Color A passes behind the rod at the bottom, and my ball of yarn, color A, is just going to sit here, waiting while I put on this 2B colored loops. And let's see, the yarn went behind. So this one is going to start by just placing it in front. And then we go behind and in front. And I'm going to make 2 loops. Starts in front. It ends up behind. And then I'm going to cut. And I tie the beginning to the end. And relocate that knot right where I want it. Okay. So now I can carry on with this color yarn. I need to slide my finger in between here, find this space. Color A passes in that space. So now color A goes behind and in front while it passes through the lavender colored loops. Comes out on this side. Okay, now I want 4 loops of this background color.
Okay. 5A. Let's look and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 1, 2. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay. So now 2 be colored. Questions?
Everyone looks very focused.
Okay. So let me know when you're ready to carry on.
I had to pull my frame back out before I threaded it.
Could you show the transition between colors one more time? I think I did it wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, there's no wrong way to do it. One way
Do you want
is
me to bring that section up on the video?
are you wanting how you cut it and tie it or how you pass it through?
Pass it through.
Okay. All right. So here, let's see where I'm at. The first color, the yarn, it starts off over here. Okay. All right. So we have the first color ends up at behind.
Okay.
The new color we lay down in front, and then we go behind and in front, behind and in front, behind and in front, behind, so that the behind thread ties to the in front thread. Yes.
Okay.
And then because this is an independent thread, you relocate that knot.
Gotcha.
That's one part of it. The other part is that this color A thread now, color A thread, if I carry on, then that A thread is going to go pass over. It's going to be around the outside. You're going to see it. And some people will consider that unsightly, but it can hide inside the loop. And to find the right place, you slide your finger along the rod here at the bottom. This is the correct place for that thread to pass through. Just slide your finger along inside those loops. And that's where color A comes through, just right there. And to check and see that it looks right, what happens here is that, let's get the loops out of the way. Color A goes behind and in front while it passes inside of those loops. That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Not a problem. So do we have the frame warped?
Kevi says yes. Prabha does.
Okay, all
Deanna
right. So the
is
other thing we need,
nodding.
yes? We
Yeah,
need to
we're good.
realign where this rod goes. And then Claire, maybe the next thing is we watch that Cot-Tit movie. We've been talking about those extra long loops at the top and how we can get rid of those. There are a couple of things I have seen in historic pieces, but I think this is the easiest, or quick and easy. Yeah, okay, Claire. Yes, roll the movie.
Edges can be very important. The loop ends of this piece of cloth are nice and small. I've seen evidence in historic pieces of several different ways to make sure the loops are small. Here's a technique I teach in my beginning Sprang classes. When I teach the interlinking stitch, I have you start with an initial row, a plait row or braiding row, and then an overplait or follow-up row. There's several reasons why I insist on that initial row, but it does give you these long loops. Here's the fix I offer students to reduce the size of those loops, make them smaller, so that they're the same size as the loops here at the bottom of the frame. We start with the threads set up with an initial shed, and you work an initial row. Threads cross with their immediate neighbor on this initial row, pick up, put down, threads crossing in pairs all the way across. At the end of the row, I put in a safety string. Pass that through there, and I also put in a pair of chopsticks that are still joined. This helps keep things compacted at the bottom of the frame. At this point, I also put in a secondary support. I've got a metal rod holding the loops at the end of my frame, and this is an extra rod just like the one in the frame. I place it in the shed here at the top of my warp, right in the space. Then I work another row. This time it's a plait row or braiding row. I pick up 2 threads, put one down, and then I pick one up, put one down all the way across the row. This encloses that new rod I placed there, and it ends with pick one up, put 2 down. That was the plait row. I slide the work down, I move the chopsticks into the new space, and I put in another safety string. And And then I'm ready to work an overplate row or a follow-up row. The bead helps me keep track of the thread at the edge and helps me decide what row I'm on. I work plain stitches all the way across this row, pick up and put down, pick up and put down. I push down, I move the chopsticks, and I put in yet another safety string. So I've got 2 rows worked since I put that rod in at the top. I now check my work to make sure everything is good. We have the initial row, these long rope-like twists. Then we have the rod. Below that we have the plait or braiding row, characterized by the 2 threads at the edge, 2 up, 2 down. And then I worked an overplate row, which is plain stitches all the way across, reestablishing original partners. It looks like everything's correct. The next thing I'm going to do is hard to undo. I'm going to place a semi-permanent safety line. I take an extra piece of yarn and I tie it in the current shed. This fancy maneuver will obliterate the first cross, and if I ever later think I want to go back to the start, this semi-permanent safety line is a place to which I will return my new place of last refuge. What I'm going to do will not affect the things at the bottom. It only affects what's at the top, getting rid of these extra long loops. Let me move the frame so you can see. I'm going to take this rod out. Now, it's a safety feature. I have to bend it a little bit to get it over the side of the frame here. I'm going to slide it all the way out, slide it out. Those extra twists just cancel out. I now put the extra rod into the eyelets, put it back on the frame. I slide one end of the rod into the eyelet, slide it over, past the upright on the side of the frame. I have to bend the rod a little bit to get it to slide into the other eyelet. And now I want to really compact those first few rows. Pushing all at once doesn't work as well as pushing them just 1 or 2 threads at a time. And I can really shrink those rows, making the loops at the top nice and small, just like they are at the bottom of the frame. So here's the steps. You work an initial row. You insert that secondary support, or rod. Work a plait row, then an overplate row. Be sure to check your work. Make sure everything's all right. Before you work this fancy maneuver, you might want to put in this semi-permanent safety line. And then you work that fancy maneuver, canceling out the extra twists. On my video, I show you how to work this technique with the bent wood.
There, that's the technique. We want to try that. Yeah. Let's see, maybe we need, there, yeah. So we start with that initial row. I need to have the cottage printed out so we can be following it along, hey? I work that initial row, mash everything down, and put in my chopsticks. And I put in a safety string. Then I work the plait row, the braiding row. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. The instructions were we do this, and then we put in the rod. Put in the extra rod. You know what? I need to write down those instructions so that we're following them, okay? Number 1 was initial row. Number 2, you insert the rod. Number 3 is the plait row. Number 4 is the overplate row. Number 5, check your work. Number 6, the safety line. Number 7, the fancy maneuver. And number 8, you compact the loops. Okay, so we can follow along. All right, that's good. Thank you, sir. All right. We did the initial row, then I would slide this rod in. Now, sometimes you can have it held. That rubber band maybe will help hold it too. Number 2 is the rod. Then number 3 is this plate row, which is pick up 2, put 1 down, and we work across the row. Okay, mash it down. Put in the safety string. Then the overplate row, which is plain stitches all the way across. Okay. So now you want to check your work, make sure everything looks correct. Got this nice up, down, nice even stitches all the way across. Put in this semi-permanent safety line. This semi-permanent safety line. Once in a while, things happen, and a person wants to go back to the very start. After we do this maneuver, this is our new go back to the very start. Do you understand? Once we cancel out those twists at the top, that messes up our figure of 8. We don't have the perfect figure of 8 once we've done this. So instead of that figure of 8, if you decide you want to go back to the start, you're going to go back to here, not to the rod at the bottom. Yeah, which means that these other safety lines also are superfluous. You put those in case you need to fix these rows here. If you notice an error at step number 5. If step number 5 is good, we can remove these. We've got a safety line here. This is going to be, if you want to go back to the start, we're going to go back to here forever after. Okay. That was step number 6. The safety line number 7 is this fancy maneuver, which means I pull out the rod that's in the eyelets. And this rod here, those loops at the top, we just cancel things out. And we can start working now. We've got some nice, neat little loops here at the top, same size of loops as what we've got at the bottom of the frame. Okay.
Why couldn't you just start with a round warp instead of a figure 8 warp?
That won't completely solve the problem.
Huh.
Because each thread, it comes from the right, goes up, and then it goes to the left, and then it goes down to it's not completely symmetrical at the top and the bottom. No matter how you set it up. I like the figure of 8. Okay, I started out teaching in person, and there's always somebody who pulls everything out, and I got to come over and help them start over again. And it's far easier if you can just slide your hand in at the bottom, come up to the top, bidding, we're done. But other ways of setting, if you set up around and around, then you do need to pay attention to where your cross is. But that doesn't completely, you'll still have at least a half twist extra at one side or the other.
Oh, okay.
Try it and see.
I will.
Okay. All right.
I'll try it sometime this week. Yeah.
Yeah. I just find this a really neat way of doing it.
Okay.
There are a couple other things that I have seen in historic Sprang that I suspect have to do with cinching up. But the other thing is, I think in the past, people didn't use metal rods. They tie a fine string here and over here at this side. And, you know, you're setting up your warp around strings. Now, the problem modern people have is you have to tie a knot and you have to have that string be tight enough, and you must not have sag in that string. If that string sags, then, you know, to get an even warp, it just, modern people, it seems easier this way, but there's no right way of doing it, just different ways. I just decided for expediency in a classroom situation, this is how I do it. I do like this cancel out the extra twist technique, but you don't have to. But, questions about that?
Could you put the steps up back again, or you have it there? Okay.
Yeah.
Can we take a halfway break so I can lock up my hens?
Yes. I'm thinking it's 8 o'clock. It's been an
Okay.
hour, so should we have a 7-minute break here?
Yeah, let's have we'll come back at 8 after 8. 8
Okay.
after the hour.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Close the coyote buffet, as it says.
Aha. Okay. All righty.
Oh, Alex says we should say 8:38 in Newfoundland.
Ah, okay.
38 after the hour in Newfoundland because the Newfies are on a half time zone.
Right, but I don't think we've got anybody in class from Newfoundland.
I don't think so.
And I suppose since we're doing right-handed, left-handed, we should also do Newfoundlander. Is that it? Hard to say. Hard to say. Okay, so then the next thing is these the 2-color thing, the full twists, right? So got the coyotes all discouraged now?
There's a big guy got raided last spring, and they dragged off all the turkeys except for one hen. So I grabbed all of her eggs and put them in the incubator, and they developed, but they didn't hatch. I hate it when it does that. It's like they go all over to the end, but they don't get out. So anyway, I've got 2 older dogs. So I decided it was time to get a bigger dog. And he's been great. He's very rambunctious, but that's my first time with a livestock guardian. And they have their behaviors are totally hardwired. All you got to do is get some very basic obedience in them, because you will not be able to pick them up later, because they're like, 80 to 120 pound dogs.
Right.
What breed are they?
It's a Pyrenees Anatolian mix.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, but it's got enough Aussie Shepherd in it to make it playful at that size. Fortunately, it's not full size, but maybe I'll bring him in later.
As long as he can not restrain himself on chasing the hens himself.
There were a couple hens that died last week, and I suspect that he gave them a playful chomp, and it was just too much for him, and they caused him some internal damage. Because they went to the pain corner. There's a corner they stand in when they're hurt, and I noticed the back of their necks was kind of wet, and so I think they died by morning. And so I just came out of the house holding it, going, bad dog, and it didn't happen again.
Okay.
They've got a lot of hardwired behaviors. I mean, they go on perimeter patrol.
Yeah.
When they're puppy, you just kind of walk around the perimeter a lot, and that's what they do. And they stay out all night, no matter how He's good to about zero Fahrenheit. That's what he has.
Okay.
He's great. The other dogs are good to about 20.
Okay.
Yeah, they're old. One of them might be a coy dog. I'm not sure. It's a healer with some very coyote-like behaviors.
Hmm.
And she sings. She does not sing like a dog. I'm like, I don't think you're all dog. The older male is a collie boxer mix, and he's only got about a year or so left in him.
Yeah, you need a
So it
new
was
one.
after the raid, it was like I looked at Butch and I was like, I think it's puppy year.
Yep. Yep. You need a new puppy before the old one dies. That's for sure.
That's right, because they gotta teach the stuff. But he hates
Exactly.
them, and because I had to get the male because the female won't accept other females. The male doesn't like other males, but it's like the male's gonna die first, so we get the male.
Right. Okay. So it's 8 after. Time to get started again.
Yes.
Can you explain about the middle safety line you tied and then brought it down? What was the purpose of that? If you didn't do it, what would happen?
If I
The
didn't.
semi-permanent.
Oh,
The one in the middle.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't put that in, then, and then, you're working and then you think, oh, you know what? I want to go back to the very start. And you take it down to the rod. You come up, you won't have a cross.
It'll be different. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I've got
So now you remove those safety lines and bring this one down? Is that what
Well,
you do?
you know what? I leave this one in until I get to a point where I'm not going to go back to the start again. When I decide, you know what, I'm not ever going to go back to the start. I'm far enough along.
Okay.
Then you can take this out.
Okay.
Okay. That makes sense.
I thought you were replacing the original starting safety line with this one. But you're not.
What this replaces is go back and slide your finger along the rod, come up and find the cross.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All righty. So the next thing we want to talk about is working with these two colors. And I want to draw your attention to some of the rules for how these work. And then we're also going to talk about how we can disobey the rules and do color pattern kinds of things, which is the key behind like this hat. And you see how I played with the colors. I got the colors to do different things. And there's just a simple trick, just one simple little stitch that you need to do to play with this. Okay, we're going to roll the movie that talks about working with the color, and then we'll do it together. Yes, thank you.
This is a colorful Sprang hat. I made it using that basic interlinking stitch and strategically placed full twists. Let me show you what I mean. We'll start by making this sampler. It's got 14 loops of a background color, interspersed with 2 sets of contrasting colored threads. With such a colored warp, on the plate row, I also call it a braiding row, you'll have this 2-colored stitch, a solid colored stitch and another bicolored stitch. I work solid colored stitches, and then once again we have a stitch with 2 colors of yarn. I've got a solid colored stitch and then a stitch with 2 colors of yarn. That's what will happen on your plate row. The plate row ends with pick up 1, put 2 down, and then on the overplate row we return to original partners, so we're going to have solid colored stitches all the way across. Here we have a pink thread matching a pink thread, a pink matching a pink, and then we have solid colored white stitches. All the way across on the overplate row, we have always solid colored stitches, same colored threads in all the stitches. This is what it will look like after several rows of that interlinking stitch if I don't do anything fancy. It looks like a line with a bit of a jog. And this is how I would chart such a piece. Along the top row, you can see those 5 white stitches, then 2 purple stitches, then 4 white, then 2 purple. And following downward, you can see how we have the two colored stitches and the solid colored stitches, alternating on the plate row and the overplate rows. Let me now show you how I could start playing with the colors. My rule is going to be that whenever I meet one of those two colored stitches, I'm going to give a full twist. This is what I mean. I'm going to work a braiding row just like regular. It starts with that special stitch, and I'm going to have these two colored stitches occurring occasionally as I work across the row and speed across the row to the end of the row. This fancy maneuver has to start on a plate row where we have those two colored stitches. There were 4 two colored stitches on this row. This is the first one. I'm going to work each of these two colored stitches a second time, work a pick up, put down. That gives it a full twist. Let me find the second two colored stitch. Here it is. I work a pick up, put down, making that stitch a full twist. Looking over to find the third one, and a full twist here, and the fourth one. That red thread starts out at the back and it ends up at the front. By giving those two colored stitches an extra twist, I've interrupted the normal movement of threads, meaning the design will be a little bit different. This is the way I might chart such a set of stitches. You can see that each two colored stitch has another stitch on the partial row below. On this version of the chart, it wants you to do those 2 steps all in one. Here's how you do that. Now, that was 2 steps. I could do this all on the same row. Here I'm starting that plate row again, and when I get to the stitch that should use 2 colors of threads, here the red thread starts off as a back thread. I can make that full twist all in one. I take that back red thread, it comes to the front, and then it goes all the way around and it ends up as a back thread. Shall I do that again? Okay, the red thread starts at the back. I pick up the back thread, and this would be the end of a normal stitch, but I take it all the way around and that red thread ends up at the back. So it has gone all the way around. Here's that red stitch normal using the same color of thread. And once again, I've got a 2 colored stitch. So I pick up this white thread. It starts at the back. It's going to go all the way around and it ends up at the back. That's a full twist. I make normal regular stitches that are only really a half twist. The back one comes up, front one goes down. And once again, we've got a 2 colored stitch. The red thread starts at the back. It comes to the front and it goes all the way around into the back. All right, the next stitch is same color, so pick up, put down. And then once again, we have a 2 colored stitch. The white thread starts in the back. I pick it up and it goes all the way around and it ends up at the back. Those are full twist stitches, and then I make regular, only half twist stitches to the end of the row. That's another way of doing the same thing. Let's now see what happens on that overplate row. Normally, the overplate row always has same colored stitches, but here, whoa, look at this. On this overplate row, we've got some 2 colored stitches. Actually, from here on out, any stitch on this overplate row that has a pink thread is going to have a white partner. That's just what we've done. And you can see the pattern's changing a little bit. After several rows, you can see the pattern has definitely changed. This is what the chart would look like. You notice on the overplate row, we have stitches using 2 colors of threads. And on the plate row, there's a 2 colored stitch, then a solid purple stitch, then a 2 colored stitch.
Okay.
Actually, the change is pretty dramatic. We've got a very...
I'm thinking that we want to try that, eh? And, yes?
Hmm?
You want to try doing that?
Yes, please.
To try doing that together?
Yes.
And let's see, do I have that?
What I can do is I can put the chart out on the screen, but then
then you can't
that
see my hands
overshoots
working.
your.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Let me, hang on a second.
I've got mine printed out, so.
You got yours printed out? Okay, good, good. Can print that out quick. But
what we're doing here. Notice on this, on the plate row, when we pick up 2, put 1 down, that stitch with 2 colors of thread. Yeah. And if we work that stitch twice, it goes all the way around a second time. When
So
it does,
in
yes,
the written instruction under row 4,
yes.
well, maybe you have the legend somewhere here. What is
Claire,
FT?
can you pull up that PDF sheet?
Oh, full twist, is that what
Yep.
it means? Okay,
Row 4.
okay, full twist. Oh, got it.
Sorry, one moment. Oh.
So in this one, you don't want us to do the full twist, right? You want us to
Well,
do the first.
it's a good idea to start off by making, see what the original pattern looks like.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. The first several rows, the first couple rows, you want to see what it looks like, just regular. So maybe I should,
I have the handout here.
okay. There we are. Okay. Yes. Okay. So row 1, 2, and 3. Oh, let's see. Start off. Row 1 says we work 18 plain stitches. That is the initial row. It says
So
row.
if you're on a computer screen, you should be able to make the shared screen smaller by dragging. There's a little button between the screens. You should be able to make Carol's hands at least the same size as the shared screen.
Is that okay
And
for?
Carol, if you want to try and do,
I did that.
you did that on your screen? Okay,
on my screen.
perfect.
So I'm thinking that it should share that way. Hey, record that way. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says, row 1, it says is 18 plain stitches. Row 2 has got a right edge stitch, then 15 plain stitches, then a left edge stitch. Right-handed people reading right to left. If you're left-handed, you read left to right. Row 3 is that overplate row, 18 plain stitches, a follow-up row. And if you want, you can repeat that row 2, row 3, row 2, row 3, row 2, row 3 several times, so you can see how we get this jogging line. When you want to try something different, then that's row 4. Row 4 is got the different thing. Row 5, 6, 7, 8 are follow-up to that. But the exciting thing happens on row 4, and then after that, you're returning to kind of more normal stitches. Let's see. To do that, it has to be on a plate row. I'm working an overplate row. This is or follow-up row all the way across. I have to work this row because it has to start changing on a plate row. Okay. Put in a safety string. Okay, so I'm ready to work a row 4. Are we ready for that? Yes?
Do we want the chart still up, or do we want a full screen of Carol's hands?
Hang on. You know what? I think my thing should have printed out. I'll be right back. Weird. My printer is having a problem. We're going to stay like this, Claire.
Okay.
All right. So we're working on row 4. Starts with this right edge stitch. And then I work 3 plain stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then that 4th stitch on the chart, it's got 2 slashes, a different kind of thing. What that means is we work the stitch twice, or we also call it a full twist. This purple thread starts at the back. He comes to the front and he goes all the way around and he ends up at the back. That's what we call the full twist. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's bring the camera in closer here. Sorry. We're good? All right, do that again. Right edge stitch. 1, 2, 3 plain stitches, then pick up, put down, and pick up and put down again. Yeah. Then we do 1 regular stitch, and then another full twist. So this beige colored thread, pick up, he's at the front, he goes all the way around, and he ends up at the back. It's what I call a full twist. Then we work 3 plain stitches, 1, 2, 3. We work 1 full twist. The purple starts at the back, it comes to the front, goes all the way around, and ends up at the back. Pick up and put down. And now this beige one starts at the back. He comes to the front, goes all the way around, and he ends up at the back. It's what we call a full twist. All right, that was a fancy row, row 4. Row 5, 6, 7, 8 are regular stitches. I push this all down. Put in another safety string. Okay, now I'm going to work several rows without doing anything fancy. And you're going to see the effect that those stitches have on the colors, on the cloth, the pattern. Just having done a couple of stitches differently, it affects the position of the colored thread in the stitch, and they move outward. Those contrasting colored threads are going to move outward. So now, see here we have all bicolored stitches. There's 2 colors in all of these 4th stitches here at the middle on the overplate row. I said earlier that on this overplate row, everybody has original partners and they all have the same color thread in the partners, but that doesn't work since we did that funny thing that throws all the rules out the window. And we're going to have a very different kind of pattern all of a sudden now. Questions about that? Oh, sounds like maybe the printer is working now. So my sample here.
I'm going to have to start from the beginning because look at, I don't know if you can see mine.
Claire, can we see hers? Can you spotlight Prabha? Yes, okay. And your question is?
Look, I don't know what's happening up on top here.
There's that one white thread that is jumped over, hey?
Yeah. So, but I can't seem to get it back. I need to redo it.
Well, go back to that semi-permanent safety line, hey?
Yeah, but that's where I am actually.
Oh.
So I feel like that, when I introduced the contrast color and there's like a twist in the bottom, that twist came up, it looks.
Can you hold your frame up so I can see the bottom of the frame? Up a little bit higher. Yeah, okay. Huh. I don't know where that white thread at the top is coming from then. He's out of order there somehow.
That's right. And it's twisted and looking weird.
Yeah,
but when I first ran my hand up, when I put the when I did the maneuver, it looked okay. Something's happened since then.
Something has happened.
I'll redo it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Have I told you about the pixies? There's pixies. Wherever there's threads, there's pixies. I learned about this. There was a book. I learned how to spin from a book from the library. And the author of this book from the library was talking about when you step away from your spinning wheel, you need to take the tension off. Otherwise, the pixies play. And she says, where there are threads, there you will find pixies. The pixies don't think they're being malicious, but your spinning wheel sitting there, there's the pixies and husbands and pets and children are going to want to come and play with the treadle and they'll mess up your yarn. You need to learn how to deal with the pixies. And as soon as you blink your eye, the pixies are in there playing. The pixies don't think they're being malicious, but the reality of life is that there's pixies. And, you know, we just have to deal with them. That's just how it is.
Well, you know, it's good to learn by undoing and doing.
Yeah. Yeah. What the full twist does is it moves the threads over by one position. And the chart is going to tell you how to do that. That I'm going to be back in just a second. I think the printer worked. I don't know. All right. Never mind. Claire, can you pull up that chart again? What we're trying to do is play with these colors. And there's the chart. There's the chart. You can see on row 4, we do this funny thing, which gets the threads to move over. On row 9, we're going to have another series of these full twists, and that moves the threads even further out. And then on row 14, we do something to kind of even up, play with the threads, get the colors to get back together again instead of being so far apart. They'll have partners again. And the challenge, your challenge for the week, should you choose to accept, is to work your way through this chart. And then what I'm thinking you're going to get is a sample that looks kind of like this. Nope. This one here. It should look like this, where we have pattern A, which is the joggy line. And then we get to this kind of thing, which is what happens row 4 to 9. And then if you do row 9 successfully, notice that row 9 is an overplayed row. Row 9 is a follow-up row where plain stitches all the way across, but we do these full twists, and then it should get into this kind of pattern. And should you have a warp that's long enough on row 14, we can pull threads back into partners again. Now, what sometimes happens if you do, we start off and then we do row 4, then row 9, then row 14, and you can go almost directly from this joggy line to the pattern here in the middle. That's what happened here. What sometimes happens is people do row 4. They do row 4 in every plate row, and then this is what happens. This is another version. And people say, oh, it doesn't have any effect at all. Well, that's because every plate row, you're doing those full twists. And it goes there and it comes back. You take it there and take it back is what's happening. Yeah. Now, maybe to better explain what's going on, there is this charting exercise. I sometimes have people have graph paper, but let me just explain this. And then if you want, you can play with this yourself. So this is a bit of an explanation of how this works. We take a piece of graph paper, and then you are going to mark out number of squares for how many threads you have, not loops. Every loop is worth 2 threads. So if we have a warp of 20 threads, we have to have 40 squares. Now this is on graph paper. You know what? And so each one looks like it's got 4 inside. You know what? I need to fix that. All right, but we join each square, the square for each thread. On the first row, we have stitches, and that's pairs of threads get joined. So this is what the first row of stitches looks like, right? And then the next slide is row 2, where we have the same number of threads, but we organize the stitches differently. We pick up 2, put 1 down. We've got that longer stitch at the edge, a 3-thread stitch, and then 2, 2, 2, right? And then we colored in, I color the right edge stitch in blue and the left edge stitch in green. But let's also put in the colors. So scroll down the next one. If these loops are the contrasting color, then what happens is you can kind of color straight down. You can have colored pencils with your graph paper, and you can color straight down. These stitches are all going to be that color, right? But what happens when we do the full twist, if you do a full twist, what happens is that the colors swap places. So on the row below, on row 6, we did those fancy stitches. On row 7, the stitch that has those 2 twists, the threads trade places. So the pink square is not straight below on the right-hand side there. row 6, that the pink and the white trade places on the next row. On the next row, those two colors, does that make sense? If you're going to write this out on a chart, if you're wanting to plan how this move, how the threads move, the rule is below one of those full twist stitches, the thread colors trade places. That's what happens. Okay, so now on the next row, the next slide here, row 12, we did another set of 2 colored stitches. And what happens below that is that those threads are going to trade places and comes back together again. Now notice we worked this on row 6 and row 12. These are both plate rows. If you work on the same a plate row and then do the same thing on another plate row, it goes back to where it came from. Yeah. On the next slide, I think what we show is we do that the next time we do the full twists. Hang on a second. That's not correct. I did that wrong. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Okay, yeah, okay. That is correct. If we do that on the next row, they go back to where they came from. If, however, you work the full twists on an overplate row, they go further apart. If I would have waited one more row and worked those full twists on row 13, then they would have gone further apart. Yeah, see that? I did that wrong. That's incorrect. I need to fix that. The rule is that you have to stick with the brickwork, the stitches, one row, the next row. You can work a full twist on any stitch, but a full twist on a 2 colored stitch causes the colors to trade places. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the rules. Okay. I'm hoping that makes sense. Your challenge for the week then is to work your way through that chart and see if you can't get the colors, get your thing to look like this. All right.
There's 2 charts presented on the web page. There's 2 sets. There's the other one as well.
Right. There is another one. There's a version 2, which is this one. There's another version where we have 6A, 6B, 6A, and we work solid for a while, and then we do these full twists, and you can have the colors go apart. And here you see how there's a jog, the blue and then the yellow across the way. They're not quite lined up, but there's a little thing that I do here to get them lined up. And then we can play with that a little bit further.
Well,
That's
actually what you're showing is sample 2, but in sample 1, you have 2 versions. And I don't see the difference in the photo, but in the chart, there is a difference.
Okay, I think I was writing. This is this one here.
Yeah.
Okay, scroll down. The 2 charts. I think I was writing it 2 different ways. No, chart 1. Okay. And that's one design. And then the sample 2 is this other one.
So when you say version 2, it's just a different way of writing the chart. Is that it?
Yeah, some versions of this have a different way of writing the chart. Did I not flick that on the, but people were getting confused. I thought I didn't have. Claire, can you go to the website and pull up the one from the website? Did we not? At one point I was playing with how to write up the chart, and I wrote up the chart a couple different ways, made the squares a little bit different, but it should be the same thing.
Well, the finished photo shows the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Questions about that full twist? It's just something you need to play with. And it's a way of, making the colors move around, making designs. That's how I did this, just playing with the colors, making the patterns shift around. So what I'm trying to do
I've
is
got the web page up.
Okay, and click on that version 1. Yeah, handout 1A. Yeah, okay.
Version 1.
Yeah, okay. That's the same. I was trying to figure out how to write the chart, if this is more clear, but it should be the same thing. Telling you where pick up, put down. I don't know. I'm thinking that we should not have that second one there.
I agree.
Okay. All right. We need to replace this on the web page. Okay. And then,
Okay.
but Claire, now open up that number 2, the other
Oh,
page. I think. Yeah, that's sample 1. And then there was a sample 2.
yeah, hold on. The Zoom bar is on top of my navigation.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Yeah. 2.5. Yes. That one is this. Yeah, it's a different setup, but it's another way to play with full twists.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have that printed, yeah.
Okay. And it
But you don't have the same version of the chart. You have this
right.
old
Okay.
style.
I need to fix that. Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but it should work about the same way. Where we're doing these
Do you
full
want me to
twists.
swap them out right now for
If
the
you got
ones?
them, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's what I've been sharing on screen.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
I see
So
not.
this chart is really not to be used.
If it doesn't make sense to you, no, don't. Don't worry about it. It should be the same information as the other one. I was just trying to decide what would make more sense to people. Yeah. Okay,
I'm updating them right now.
okay, good, good. Thank you. Now we also talked, Claire, about the squeezing in the last row, working diagonal at the center.
Yeah. You want me to bring that up?
Yeah, this is another thing, extra credit, something you might be interested in eventually, and might be something you want to come back to and watch later. But there are different ways of working at the middle, squeezing in the last few rows, and sometimes it's difficult to work all the way across. Peter Cullingwood, in his book on Sprang, suggested a way of working on just little sections at the middle, and that might be an easier way of doing it. Here is my little video that shows about working in little sections. Thank you, Claire.
For many Sprang pieces, you want to squeeze in as many rows as you can at the middle. This is sometimes difficult to do. It gets to where there's not enough room for your fingers, let alone working. I think I've got a solution for you. I'm going to use this tool here. It's got a hook at one end and an eyelet at the other end. And I'm also going to use a knitting needle. Now, I'm going to remove these extra safety strings from my work, leaving in the very last one, and I'm going to remove the chopstick, living dangerously here. I take my knitting needle and I slide the knitting needle along the safety string, and I'm going to pick up 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe six of these threads at the edge, and I'm going to work from the knitting needle to this crochet hook. I've got 6 threads on my knitting needle here, and it's far easier to work just these threads, not all of them, and you're going to see how I'm going to work these down towards the middle. All right, the bead is up. That means I start with an overplate row. Pick up 1, put 1 down. 2, 3, 4. I can work 5 stitches on these 6 threads. There's the 5 stitches. The last stitch is always pick up 1, put 2 down. And I'm going to slide now my knitting needle in to replace the crochet hook, and I remove the crochet hook. Now I have a knitting needle with 5 threads there. These 5 threads, the bead is down, so I start with a edge stitch, pick up 2, put 1 down, and I'm going to work on these stitches. 2, 3, 4. Here's the fourth stitch right here. Pick up, and these two go down. Now once again, I put my knitting needle in and I remove the crochet hook, and I'm going to work on these 5 threads. The bead is up, so it's an overplate row. Pick up from the back, put down 1, 2, 3, and pick up 1, put 2 down. That's 4 stitches on those 5 threads. And you can see this diagonal kind of line that's developing. Each row we do 1 fewer stitch, and let's see how far we can go. I think I can get another row in here. The bead is down, so I work a plate row, start with this edge stitch, pick up 2, and put 1 down, and then another stitch, 2 more stitches there, I think. 1, put that down, pick up and put down. Okay, you see that diagonal line in the cloth that I've made there? That's what we're going for. And now I'm going to put this safety string into the hole of the eyelet there, and I can pull that on through. I've got a couple of stitches there, work to the very middle, and there's this diagonal line here. Short little rows, each row a bit shorter than the one before. Now I identify a few more stitches. I'm going to slide my knitting needle along the safety string here and pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 of these threads here. And yes, I've got 6 threads, and on these 6 threads I'm going to work 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I work 5 stitches, and they're now on the crochet hook. See, there they are. I'm going to now slide the stitches onto my knitting needle and remove the crochet hook. And now what I need to do, I need to pick up this thread here from the right. I need to pick up to incorporate along that diagonal line. Once again, I'm starting out with 6 threads on that knitting needle because I added this one. And I'm going to work 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's number 5. I work the 5th stitch, always working 5 stitches, that diagonal line there, push down, I slide those 5 threads onto my knitting needle, and I look for the 6th one. I pick up the 6th one right here, so there it is, always have 6 on my knitting needle to work 5 stitches. So there's the 6, and I'm going to work 5 stitches under the crochet hook. 1, 2, there it is, 3, 4, and 5. That's that row. I slide my knitting needle in again, and I take out the crochet hook. Now let's see, are we done yet? Well, now if you look and see right here, here's the last stitch on the safety string, and there's 2 threads to the left of that. Yeah, one of those is a thread I'm going to pick up for this final row. So I've got 6 threads on my knitting needle, and I'll work 5 stitches onto the crochet hook. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. And I think that's as many as I need to work. Yep, I can see the row. Those diagonal lines go all the way straight across. Yep, we are up to evens here. I'm going to pull the safety string through, and I've added to the stitches that are worked to the middle.
Okay.
You see the stitches collecting up on the new safety line, and that.
So that is something you can try, perhaps. Extra credit. There's just so many different ways to work Sprang. But I'm thinking if you're having something that's a bit wider, when you get down to the middle, it's really hard to work that squeezy all the way across. And if you divide it up into little chunklets, that sometimes makes it easier. Okay.
Yeah, that's really cool. I tried like splitting it up in half, but I would just split up the row and then try to pick up the rest of that row and go across like all the way. That's what I was trying to do. So that's really neat.
But yeah, it's in Peter Collingwood's book. The first time I tried it, I thought I couldn't figure it didn't work in. But since then, more recently, I've tried it, and you know, it works really quite nicely. And I thought I'd pass that on to you. Just
Thank you.
extra credit if you want to try it. So your homework for the week is to work on this piece and see if you can't, you know, get this pattern to work. No shame in if you don't want to. Another thing you might try is setting on different colored stripes. Try to make a little hat like this. Finishes the way we finished off last week. Make a multicolored thing. I think there's a pattern. This was I did with an acrylic, a heavier yarn. There's a pattern that I used for this one on the website if you want to try that out. So that's your homework for the week. Next week, we will look at yet another way to finish off. And then we will look at some other surface design things, how to make holes on purpose, how to make little slits in your work. How to make little tabs. And then we maybe look at doing something like this, which is really cool. Hey? The goal of the class is to get you to be able to be really, really comfortable with this basic interlinking stitch. And what I'm doing here is I'm just throwing in other little things just to keep it interesting for people who want a little more stimulation, a little more challenge. You don't have to do these extra things, but it does make it more interesting. Okay? So we've got about 10 more minutes. If you want to keep working on that, let me know what kind of snags you're getting into initially.
I gotta find the
So
website.
somehow mine has mysteriously come about where it's now going in front of the rod and behind.
So can you spotlight her so I can see? Oh, yeah. Okay. Did you we replaced the rod and you needed to go back to that semi-permanent safety line?
I went back to the beginning. So now
Yeah,
I think
and so you don't have a cross, and there's no cross.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is why we have that semi-permanent safety line. Thank you for doing that. See, you have no cross.
That's right. But then without the semi-permanent line, unless I took it out and went right to the beginning where I first started, I mean, I didn't know how to keep the semi-permanent and still retrieve it. That's what I'm trying to say.
You didn't know how to keep?
How to use that semi-permanent to retrieve my original.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Good enough. Good enough. Okay, Claire. So show me, Claire, show my iPhone here. Okay. How to use the semi-permanent safety line. All right. So at one point I'm thinking, oh, I don't like this. I need to take this out. I take out my safety string. Excellent question, Prabha. Excellent question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my semi-permanent safety line. I take everything out, take it out. And excellent question. I've got a knitting needle here that I'm going to slide in along exactly where that semi-permanent safety line went. I go along right there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Once I have done that fancy maneuver at the top, I'm not going to consider going back to the rod. I just go back to this string here. If I need to cancel everything else, give me a fresh start. So now what that does, what that takes me back to, it takes me back to this place here. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But then I think in my case, it was worth something beyond that because somehow one white came in between the two blues.
Yeah, yeah. I have no idea. I think this is clear evidence of pixies.
So I couldn't do anything other than go back to the beginning, which means I now need to
start up, warp it up again.
Warp it, yeah, rewarp the. paint.
Yeah, you know what, this woman who wrote this book on spinning, she says pixies don't think they're doing anything malicious. They're just saying, lighten up.
Yeah.
It's just strings. It's
Yeah.
just strings. It doesn't matter. It's
No,
okay.
I don't mind starting again, so it's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes, you do need to go
That's
back.
okay.
But that's how I would use this semi-permanent safety line. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know where that extra white thread came in there.
It's something, I don't know if it's because when, you know how you put the white, when you've done your middle 4, and it was okay in the first 2 contrast colors, first 2 loops of the contrast colors. But when you put the main color between the, you know, to hide it and then do the warping, something happened there, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
It looked okay when I first started off, so I don't know what happened.
It's just string. It doesn't matter.
So anyway, I can redo it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's no weaving police. It's all
But
right.
it has to work, right? It has to work.
It will work the next time. It will work the next time.
I don't mind trying any number of times, so it's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Good attitude. I appreciate that. Well done. Okay. Any other questions? Comments, concerns? So, you know, there's all kinds of lovely designs that we can make with this. Just, you know, really cool patterns, all sorts of designs. This shirt here, for example. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of cool things we can do with the Sprang technique. And we're just hardly scratching the surface. Sprang is as varied, as adaptable as knitting. Yeah, anything that you can imagine, any garment you can imagine knitting already was done long ago by people using the Sprang technique. Hats, shirts, mittens, leggings, socks, you know, scarves, everything that you can knit. It's been done with Sprang long ago. So we should be able to do it today.
So what kind of things would you make on this size loom?
This size loom, you should be able to make, you know, like this kind of a little hat. You can make neck scarves. I had a neck scarf here.
Did you cover the P and R notation
Right.
that's on the handout?
Neck scarf. You can make fingerless mittens.
There's a question
Yes.
about the P and the R in the
R?
written notations.
Did you cover
Okay.
that?
P is a plain stitch, R is right edge stitch, L is left edge. Can you pull up the chart, that #1 chart, Claire? Because there should
Yeah.
be a legend there. Good question.
Yeah.
Let's go through that.
Yeah, it is there at the bottom. Yeah.
But let's go through that. Excellent question. I should talk about the notation if I'm going to be showing you the charts in the written patterns, the written instructions.
All right.
I don't know why my printer isn't working. I should have a printed copy of this, but
I'm sorry. I'm opening it right now.
okay. We're fine. Okay. So up.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, you don't introduce.
Oh, I don't have a
the,
legend there. Okay, P is
You
a
didn't
plain
talk about
stitch.
it. Yeah.
Oh, there should be a legend there. Scroll down. It should say, oh, it has a chart legend, but it doesn't have a legend for the, all right, go back up and I'll tell you what it is. And I'll put it in and all right. P is a plain stitch.
Mhm.
R, that's P is plain stitch. R is right edge stitch. L is left edge stitch. FT is full twist. You know what? I will put up the version that has that little legend in it. Sorry.
Yeah, we should be reading that right to left.
You want to read it in the direction of work.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? This is the one that. This is
There it
the
is.
one
There
that
it
is
is. There's a
now.
legend.
Okay, there it is.
So this is the version that is now on the web page.
Okay.
This is the old version that is no longer on the web page. Of the old.
Okay, got it.
But
Okay.
I just updated it a half hour ago.
Okay.
all right.
Because I printed before class and I don't.
I
have the old
downloaded
version.
it less than half an hour ago, so maybe.
Oh,
pick
sorry,
up
sorry,
yet.
sorry. Okay,
It
so
happens.
right here, let's have a look at the legend. P is plain stitch. R is a right edge stitch. L is a left edge stitch. FT is full twist. If you are right-handed, you want to read from starting at the right side, and read towards the left. Read in the direction that you work. So on row 10 there, for example, it says row 10, then there's an arrow. And if you are right-handed, then you read in the direction of that little arrow, because you start with a right edge stitch. You start with the R, then 15 plain, then L left, row 10. If, however, you are left-handed, you're going to read in the other direction because you're working the left-handed, starting on the left side, left edge stitch, then 15 plain, then right edge stitch. Does that make sense? Row 9 for right-handed people reads, start with 4 plain stitches, then 4 full twists, then 2 plain stitches, then 4 full twists, then 4 plain. And if we scroll down and look at the chart on row 9, the chart on row 9 starts with 4 plain stitches, then 4 full twists, then 2 plain stitches. You see how that correlates on row 9? Should be the same as what the written instructions are. 4 plain stitches, 4 full twists, 2 plain stitches, then 4 full twists, then 4 plain stitches on row 9. Okay?
Mhm.
And again, the chart, right-handed people read from right to left, left-handed people read from left to right. Okay? Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got 9 o'clock. So our time for this week is done. If you have questions, if you're starting to get confused, do not hesitate to write to me. Don't let yourself get frustrated. Write to me, let me know. It's just strings, it doesn't matter. But I'm hoping you have fun with this. Okay?
Thank you. Good night.
All righty.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
I'll see you
Thank you,
next week.
Flair.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.